There is a date you need to mark on your calendars, but this date was not given by an astrologer, a psychic, or a doomsday prophet trying to go viral on the internet. This date was given by a high-level agent who spent 25 years of his life in the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, guarding the country's most classified secrets, John Ramirez. In an interview he gave after retiring, he uttered a sentence that would shake the world. Prepare for 2027, because on that date, whether we want them to or not, they will be here. And Ramirez is not alone. Officials resigning from the Pentagon, intelligence officers testifying under oath before the US Congress, and leaked military documents all point to the same time frame, the same year, 2027. But why? What are governments quietly preparing for behind closed doors? Is it an invasion? A grand introduction that will change human history? Or the finale of a massive simulation of their own creation? Welcome to Intrigue's History. Today, we open the 2027 file, the date claimed to be when humanity's greatest secret will be revealed. This story did not begin in dark internet forums, but in the marble corridors of Washington. That massive state mechanism, which for years told us UFOs are products of imagination and mocked those who investigated the subject, has strangely changed its tune in the last few years. First, footage taken by Navy pilots showing objects moving against the laws of physics was leaked. Then, the Pentagon admitted these images were real. And finally, a historic first occurred. David Grusch, an intelligence officer who served at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency with the highest level of clearance, appeared before the American Congress, placed his hand on the Bible, and testified under oath saying, "We are not alone." The government has possession of non-human craft and biological entities, that is, bodies, retrieved from these crafts, which they have been hiding for decades. This was not a movie script. This was an official state hearing. Grusch claimed that these entities did not just crash in America, but in various parts of the world. He even alleged that a craft recovered by the Mussolini government in Italy in 1933 was transferred to America with the help of the Vatican. These confessions triggered the greatest ontological shock in modern history. Ontological shock is the complete collapse of an individual's or a society's perception of reality. Just like the moment the natives of the American continent froze when they saw the massive ships coming from the ocean, we are currently those natives waiting on the beach, and the ships have appeared on the horizon. This is exactly where former CIA agent John Ramirez's warning comes into play. According to Ramirez, the American government and other world powers are in a race against time to prevent the chaos this ontological shock would create in society. Ramirez relays that sources within the state told him 2027 is the breaking point. According to him, this soft disclosure process we are currently experiencing the success of UFO news, NASA statements, congressional hearings, none of this is a coincidence. These are a planned acclimatization process to prepare us for that date. Because, according to Ramirez's claim, what happens in 2027 will not be under the control of governments. They will reveal themselves. And when that day comes, if society is not mentally prepared for it, our civilization could collapse. So, why 2027? What makes this date special? The theories are various, but all are equally terrifying. The first and strongest theory is the end of the cosmic quarantine. Some researchers and insiders argue that Earth has long been a laboratory or a zoo kept under observation. From the moment we discovered nuclear weapons, we became a threat to the rest of the universe. Allegedly, these observers watched humanity's development up to a certain point. However, the uncontrolled rise of artificial intelligence, environmental collapse, and the risk of nuclear war have pushed the intervention date forward. 2027 could be the date when these entities finally step out of the shadows and take over management or guidance. Does this scenario sound too Hollywood to you? Then let's look at the other side of the coin, the threat narrative. Luis Elizondo, the former director of the Pentagon's UFO program, was asked in an interview, if people knew everything you know, what would their reaction be? Would they be happy? Elizondo paused, took a deep breath, and said a single word, somber. Why somber? If aliens are friendly, if they are going to bring us technology and peace, Why should we be somber? Elizondo's choice of this word suggests that the event might not be the Star Wars celebration we imagine. Perhaps when we learn the truth, we will realize that our place in the universe is not as special as we thought. That maybe we are just a lab rat, a resource deposit, or worse, a product. Somberness comes after a loss. Perhaps 2027 is the year humanity loses the arrogance of being masters of the universe. Another dark theory is that 2027 is not a date of invasion, but of harvest or a reset. Throughout history, from Sumerian tablets to Mayan calendars, many ancient texts write that gods from the sky visit the world in certain cycles and either advance civilization or destroy it. Maybe that cycle is complete. Maybe our technology has crossed their red line. Especially our developments in artificial intelligence might have made us a competitor or a virus that needs to be controlled in their eyes. John Ramirez is warning that you will wake up in the morning and see them in the sky, and you need not to panic resembles a forced intervention rather than a peaceful visit. Of course, there is also a version of the story that is entirely man-made, Project Bluebeam. According to believers of this theory, what we see in the sky in 2027 will not be aliens. It will be a massive fake invasion staged by world governments, specifically the global elite, to unite humanity under a single flag, a single totalitarian regime. This show, performed with advanced hologram technologies and secret military spacecraft, will scare people so much that we will give up our freedoms and say, "Save us," submitting to this new world order. It is alleged that figures like Ramirez and Grusch are knowingly or unknowingly part of this psychological operation, preparing us for fear. If this theory is true, the greatest enemy is not beyond the stars, but the men in suits right above us. However, confining the subject only to conspiracy theories would be ignoring the concrete evidence David Grusch presented in Congress. Grusch was very specific when talking about biological entities. He used the term non-human intelligence. This does not necessarily mean they are extraterrestrial. Perhaps they are interdimensional beings. Quantum physics tells us that the universe does not consist of a single layer, but that there may be intertwined dimensions. Perhaps 2027 is the date when the veil between these dimensions will be lifted. Just like in the story of the man from Toward, maybe our realities will bleed into each other. Another interesting detail leaked by sources within the CIA and Pentagon is that these beings' perception of time is different from ours. For them, the past, future, and present might be happening simultaneously. This gives birth to the theory that they are coming to warn us from the future or to save their own future. Perhaps in 2027, humanity will make a mistake that brings about its own end. A nuclear war, an AI spiraling out of control, or a deadly virus. And they are forced to intervene to prevent this breaking point, essentially to save us from ourselves. In this case, they act not as invaders, but as caretakers. But even a caretaker sometimes has to act harshly to stop a dangerous child. Let's pause for a moment and think about the big picture. Why now? Why has this topic accelerated so much after the 2020 seconds? The pandemic, wars, economic crises. It feels like the world is preparing for a grand finale. The 10-year clock John Ramirez mentioned started in 2017. This time expires in 2027. If these claims are true, we have very little time left to prepare. But how does one prepare? By entering a bunker and stocking canned food. No, this preparation is not physical. It is mental. If you saw the headline, "They have arrived," on the news tomorrow morning, what would you feel? Your religion, your beliefs, your career, the money in the bank. Would any of these have meaning left? That is exactly what ontological shock is. The collapse of the stories that hold the fabric of society together. The resetting of stock markets, religious institutions entering a crisis, the shaking of state authority. Government's biggest fear is not alien laser weapons, but this reaction you will give. Mark Zuckerberg's $270 million bunker in Hawaii, Elon Musk's obsession with escaping to Mars, Jeff Bezos building a clock inside a mountain. Do billionaires know something and are quietly preparing? Or are they just scared like us? The 2027 file slams into our faces just how fragile the reality we live in actually is. In his testimony, David Grusch said, "There were people who were injured, even died, while trying to reverse engineer these technologies. This shows that there is a secret war being waged in the shadows while we commute to work and think about bills in our daily lives. Someone kilometers underground is playing with technologies that will change, or perhaps end, human history." In conclusion, whether John Ramirez's warning is based on genuine intelligence or is a piece of sophisticated disinformation, the effect is real. Something is approaching. The atmosphere is changing. When we look at the sky, we no longer just see stars. We see possibilities. 2027 might pass as an ordinary year where nothing happens. Or it will be the milestone of human history, before contact and after contact. For now, we have nothing but a definitive date and leaked documents. But there is one thing we know. The universe is not silent. And the voices within that silence are now preparing to knock on our door. Are you ready? Because as Ramirez said, whether we want it or not, the clock is ticking. And when that day comes, denying the truth will no longer be an option. Stay tuned to Intrigue's History, because the files will continue to open.